Welcome to Extremes of the Human Experience, where we explore ideas and people, good and bad, to discover who we are as human beings and who we can be. On this episode of Extremes of the Human Experience, we will be shifting our gaze away from humans and towards animals. But never fear, we will also be exploring how humans have come to have their unique relationship with the animals of the world. We've all been to one, a zoo. For the price of admission, you can see some of the most stunning and beautiful animals from all four corners of the globe. You can take pictures, watch them eat, and, if you're lucky, even get up close and personal with them. A wonderful experience for all involved, right? Maybe not. For a while, I volunteered at a zoo, which shall remain nameless. I love animals and thought this would be a great opportunity to learn more about them. But the more time I spent there, the more I began to see zoos as prisons, the animals as its inmates, and the people as crowds the warden lets in to gawk at his prisoners.
That animal of yours is certainly bad-tempered.
Yeah, well, you'd be grumpy too if you were taken out of your natural habitat and gawked at by a bunch of slack-jawed yokels.
Hey, Mom, look at that pointy-haired little girl.
The more I learned about the lives of these animals, the less likely it seemed that they would enjoy captivity any more than you or me. Let's take it back for a moment here and see just how we have evolved to the modern zoo. The first American zoo was opened in Philadelphia in 1874, and to say it would be unrecognizable from today's modern zoo would be polite. These zoos really did look like prisons, with most animals kept on concrete floors surrounded by wrought iron bars. The stated purpose, too, was entertainment, not education, and this began the trend of teaching wild animals tricks to amuse visitors. As public consciousness grew, and as we began to learn more about the intricacies of the lives of these animals, there began a gradual shift towards the modern zoo of today. While zoos started to look less like Rikers Island and animals were provided a better standard of living, they were nevertheless still expected to learn tricks to amuse the masses, a practice you can still see in zoos today. At these shows, you'll undoubtedly hear a trainer say that that particular animal loves performing and the attention that it gets from it. But, just like your dog at home, they're not performing for fun, but for food. As zoos move towards providing better standards of living, the increased cost needed to provide the necessary care, food, and environment for these animals also led to the commercialization of zoos, with some looking more amusement park than zoo. While zoos have certainly made enormous strides since their early days, the issue is not with the quality of life in captivity, but with captivity itself. Animals used to roaming dozens, if not hundreds of miles a day are kept in comparatively very cramped quarters and are often kept in sizes and with members not natural to their lives in the wild. These animals, with nowhere to escape, will display aggression and exhibit behaviors such as pacing, either as a sign of anxiety or to simply fulfill their natural instincts to be on the move. Highly social animals are often kept in relative isolation and will display states like depression when kept alone or detached from their typical familial unit. And while studies have suggested that some animals live longer in zoos than in the wild, the fact that your house cat will live longer if it is an indoor cat does not change the fact that it wants to be able to go outside. Further, this phenomenon too has been observed in prison inmates, but has never been used to justify locking an innocent person up against his will. But why do we have zoos? Sure, there's the obvious answer that it's fascinating to see so many exotic animals all in one place, but a deeper analysis points to the nature of the relationship between man and animal. Part of it can be traced back to that good old good book, where, in a certain interview with God, he gives humans dominion over the planet, a view which has stayed relatively intact to this day. But, like many pronouncements from God, as our understanding of the real world has taken shape, such pronouncements are found to be exactly what you would expect had a band of Stone Age goat herders written the Bible, which they most certainly did not. Another justification, or perhaps more so an intuitive thought process that leads to the creation of things such as zoos, is our belief that humans, by virtue of our increased cognitive abilities or something more ineffable like a soul, are above the rest of the animal kingdom and can thus treat them however we please. But I think this is arbitrary. Imagine a dog saying that, by virtue of his increased ability to smell, he has a claim to reign over the human species. Or, more realistically, if we have dominion over animals because we are quote-unquote smarter than them, do we also have dominion over those in our society with decreased cognitive abilities? As Peter Singer points out in his book Animal Liberation, any reason used to justify us lording over animals can be used in such a way that would defend all manner of unintended and reprehensible actions. And, eventually, the argument boils down to, we can do it because we are humans and they are not, an argument I do not find to have any moral relevance. As for the soul argument, I could address that in a later video if someone would be kind enough to offer me evidence that we actually have one, but would say that, if we do, perhaps it could be put to better use as justification for something other than our dubious title as slave master to the rest of creation.
But every religion says there's a soul part. Why would they lie? What would they have to gain?
I don't hear scrubbing.
A final argument you may hear in defense of zoos is that they increase the standard of living for their animals, providing food, shelter, and medical care. Leaving aside the fact that these animals were not given a choice between these amenities and their natural life, let's make a comparison with prisons. In prison, you were given 3 meals a day, a roof over your head, you don't have to work, and given stimulation such as gyms, books, and even education programs. And yet prison is viewed as the absolute last place any of us want to end up. I have not heard any argument as to why other animals would be any different. While it is an indisputable fact that humans would not have progressed to where we are today without the use of animals as our beasts of burden, and while animals to this day give us insights into our world and ourselves, the ability to justify keeping such large numbers of them in captivity in our modern societies is shrinking. Since people generally no longer accept keeping wild animals in captivity for no apparent reason, what are some of the modern-day justifications? Most zoos today will be quick to note that they are bastions of conservation, helping to save species from extinction. And while some zoos have had admirable success in this regard, the truth is that in most cases, efforts are not made to release these animals back into the wild.
Attaboy, Stampy. Put 'em once for me.
While their numbers may grow in zoos, this does nothing to promote the survival of the species as a self-sustaining unit, the ultimate goal of conservation. This, too, does nothing to explain why animals with perfectly stable populations are kept in captivity. Though some are there because they have been injured in the wild and would not survive a reintroduction, another aspect of zoos that I think is laudable and worthwhile, many of these animals would be perfectly capable of reintroduction or are simply healthy to begin with. While any animal capable of living out its natural life in the wild being instead kept in a zoo is heartbreaking, for me the worst cases are those of the birds. Many are kept in cages no higher than Shaquille O'Neal's head, and though it was always thought that birds were rather dull creatures, hence the term bird brain, research in the past decade has discovered that they are incredibly intelligent animals, capable of solving complex puzzles and using forethought. Their small brains pack in an enormous amount of neurons, and with little to do and nowhere to fly, their existence in zoos must be torturous. Now, does this mean that zoos should be completely done away with? I don't think so. Like I said before, I think the conservation initiative that zoos have taken on is admirable, provided they are done with an eye to reintroduction into the wild, as are their efforts to provide care to animals that would have otherwise died. With these two ideas dictating a zoo's existence, I believe they can still satisfy our desire to be an arm's reach away from exotic animals. In fact, I think it would be more awe-inspiring and exciting to visit a zoo whose population is determined purely by chance than it would be to see the whole of the animal kingdom in one fell swoop. As our understanding of the broader animal kingdom grows, and we see that animals share with us characteristics we used to believe to be exclusively human, such as language, intelligence, problem-solving, forethought, compassion, empathy, grief, depression, mourning, and an idea of fairness, our justification for keeping them in captivity shrinks to non-existence. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out some of the other ones we have, and like and subscribe for more.